Okay, let's go. It's time for Be Picked. When you're ready to move from clicks to clients, learn to be picked.
Welcome to Be Picked. This is the podcast where we talk with professional service providers and we help you learn how to build and grow your business. It's a new world out there. We've got AI changing things on the internet. We've got a lot of confusion and people are learning a lot of new things. I'm your host, Andrew Colsky, and we're going to talk about how to build trust and credibility today using podcasting. Our guest is Tom Fox. He is the voice of compliance. And Tom, welcome to the show. I'll let you explain further about your journey that got you here and got you into podcasting.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. It's really a thrill and my pleasure to be with you today. I have made 2 business pivots since 2010, and now I'm in a third one. So it's been a great journey for me. I'm a recovering lawyer as well. Did trial lawyer for 25 years and went in-house. Ended up as a general counsel of a oilfield services company. At that time, I lived in Houston, so I practiced in and around the energy industry for my professional career. And my company was sold in 2008, I think, and my job went away. So I decided I was 50. Thought about what I really wanted to do with my life, and I decided that I wanted to race bicycles. So I went off on this great journey to race bicycles and had a ton of fun, got in the best shape I'd been in since high school, dropped a ton of weight until one training ride, this Saturday after Thanksgiving, 2009, I got hit by a Hummer. And that ended my cycling career.
Wow.
And fortunately, other than getting hit, I was extraordinarily lucky. My most severe injury was a double fractured left leg, but I was just banged up internally and, bruised organs and stuff like that. It just took forever to heal. Anyway, convalesced for a couple of months. And in 2010, I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to go back to work. So I got on my walker and toddled into my office and thought about, as you tend to do when you have one of those events, it really focuses you on what you want to do. And in my last corporate position, the company I'd with had violated a law called the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prevents U.S. companies from engaging in bribery and corruption outside the United States. And as part of my remit in that job, I was tasked with building out a compliance program. So policies, procedures, code of conduct, internal controls, blah, 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 blah. And I decided I had really enjoyed that work. And at this point in time, there were very few lawyers in private practice who did that. Lawyers in private practice usually did investigations or negotiated with the government. So I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I was laid up to the extent the only time I could leave my house was to go to physical therapy. So I started exploring social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. There was no Instagram or TikTok back then. And Twitter. And actually in 2010, Twitter was a powerful business tool, not like it is today. And I started blogging. So I started blogging, and within 6 months, I had built a worldwide consulting practice in legal compliance, literally from my home. And the only mistake I made was not trademarking the phrase working from home, because if I trademarked that in 2010, I'd be in a very different financial position now.
Right.
Nevertheless, I did that. I'd always written a lot as a lawyer, a lot of bar articles and that sort of thing. So the blogging was an easy transition. And then in 2012, someone said, well, why don't you start podcasting? And the podcasting was just a natural extension of my blogging. I did the blogging for 2 reasons, marketing and actually to learn topics, because if I needed to learn something, I could research it and write a blog about it. And then I'd have some semblance of thought leadership around it. And so I started podcasting in 2012. In 2017, I got the bright idea. What we need is a network, a compliance podcast network. And I went around, there was 3 big trade groups in my form of compliance, which is anti-bribery, anti-corruption compliance. And I went to them and said, look, let's form a joint venture. We'll do podcasts only. It will not take away from anything you're doing. We will corner the market on podcasts, and not that I would ever suggest anything anti-competitive, will corner the market on all advertising. And the responses I got range from what's a podcast to not interested. So
Right.
I just said, bleep it, I'll do it myself. So I did. I putzed around for a couple of years and tried to get the network going. And of course, I called it the Compliance Podcast Network. And I had to beg people to, in some cases, I had to pay people to come on the network. I made my daughter start a podcast. It was just, it was really hard. And so I just started doing my own multiple series of podcasts. So I got used to doing multiple podcasts to the point where I post 4 to 6 podcasts a day now. In 2019, I decided I either had to fully commit to podcasting or I had to move it to hobby status and go back to practicing law full time. And so I quit practicing law, bought all the cool toys you see. I built this huge network, and I mean huge network. I thought I was going to have stunning growth. And at the end of the year, I'd made about $10,000. And I thought, well, that was an interesting experiment. Maybe I'll have to go back to practicing law. And so I did in Q1 of 2020. And that lasted till about March 15th of that year when the country got shut down from COVID.
Right.
So like everyone else, I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't have any work. I had this huge network. By that time, I had the largest social media presence in compliance. And the following happened about May 15th of that year. Literally every product provider in compliance, and by product provider, I mean software companies, called me and said, how long to get access to your network? Because up until that time, all marketing had been done at conferences, trade shows, breakfast roundtables, something in person.
Right.
So I had the incredible anomaly of I had people with money to spend and no place to spend it. And because of the work I had done in 2019, I had this huge network. So when the question was how long to get access, the answer was 24 hours because it was just a drop and drag or a plug and play. And my downloads went from about 115,000 in June of 2020 to 225,000 by August.
Wow. Nice.
And so my little world blew up, and I have this huge network now. And the first about 18 months, I just tried to ride the tiger because it was crazy. And then now I've kind of got things a little more smoothed out, but I have a full-time business in compliance in podcasting. So the first thing I would say is back in 2010, the biggest lesson I learned is when the universe closes one door, it opens another door. I always knew that. What I didn't realize is you have to walk through it. And you have to have the courage to walk through it. And that's what I did in 2010 when I said, I'm going to go do what interests me. And then in 2020, the insight I learned was when preparation meets opportunity, luck occurs. And whether I was lucky in May of 2020 or not, I don't care what you call it, but I was ready. And I don't know if I could have built it out on the fly, but I didn't have to answer that question because I had this network and was ready to go. So the keys around podcasting for lawyers and podcasting for businesses in general are, in my opinion, go niche. And anti-bribery, anti-corruption compliance is a very niche industry. It's huge, but it's niche. And so by focusing on that area, I built this huge consulting practice. And by focusing my podcast network on that, I built the same. I'm not the biggest fish. I'm the only fish. There's no other network in compliance literally around the globe. Now there are other podcasts in compliance, but they don't have 50,000 daily followers like I do. So it's be as narrow as you can. I talk to law firms and lawyers all the time, as well as businesses. Like I said, I think every lawyer, every law firm, every business needs a podcast. I see 5 reasons to have a podcast for businesses and law firms: thought leadership, client development, audience engagement, content creation, and sales. And you can want to do one of those things or you can want to do all of those things. And a podcast is uniquely situated to do that because when you describe for me what you do and the content you create, I can create all of that content starting with a podcast. So if I can do a podcast, I can get a blog post. If I can do 5 blog posts, well, I have a chapter of a book. and it goes from there. And then social media marketing, I create videograms, audiograms, and they're evergreening content. I do branded podcasts for law firms. A lot of lawyers want to come on to my podcast because I'm so well known in the compliance space. And I'll talk to anybody about anything. And I have two metrics and two metrics only for a successful podcast. Number one, how much did I learn? And I'm pretty arrogant to think I'm at the top of the heap of compliance, but I always learn something every time because I'm talking to somebody who's not me. So once I kind of figured that out, it was a big aha moment. But the other thing is, how much fun did I have? Because if I'm having fun, I'm engaged, and my voice is engaged, and my listeners can tell I'm engaged. I don't mean ha 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 laughing fun. I mean enjoying myself, really learning something, and I'm a complete, total, and utter geek. I can go down any rabbit hole you want to talk about, and I think that's fun. Uh, so, um, I think for me, it's the perfect forum. And then the other reason is I knew for the longest time there was something different about podcasting than blogging or writing a book. And obviously, written versus audio, certainly. But now I've learned the neuroscience of audio is located in the hypothalamus of the brain, and that's the pleasure center. And video is not located there. You see it in a different part of your brain. And so people actually enjoy the audio experience. And I can't tell you how many people I meet who say, I recognize your voice. And so that can be a very powerful tool, and it supplements, as a lawyer, everything you do. And almost all of us write because we have to write whatever flavor lawyer you are, a trial lawyer, a contracts lawyer, a deal lawyer, you write. And so most of us can write, but taking your practice and your story to the next step through the audio format of a podcast, and I do video, but my video numbers are minuscule compared to my audio numbers. So I'm a huge proponent of the podcast format. I love talking to other lawyers. And the last thing I would say, it has made me an extraordinarily better lawyer because I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm talking to the smartest people. Because I'm talking to so many people, I get to connect the dots and see the bigger picture. So it's made me at the top of the heap of compliance because I'm talking to the top of the heap already.
Right. Wow. All those things that you say are definitely, my experience as well. One of the reasons that I started this podcast, and I have others and a radio show and all, but this particular podcast is because I get to talk to experts like you, and I get to learn from you, because there's things that that you have from your experience that I'm not going to learn in a book or reading a post somewhere else. I'm going to learn because you've shared your experience, and you've shared the ups and the downs and the pitfalls, and look out for this and go for that. I'm not going to learn that anywhere else except talking to people like you. And the other thing that you said in there, which I found really timely, is we talk about niche. We've always heard, if you go back even pre-internet, people talk about niche market, whatever, But here's what I found to be really interesting. And I spend a lot of time now, my interest focuses on AI search, because that's sort of where we're headed. Well, it is where we're headed. We're already there. And the really interesting thing is I spend some time, some of the different AI engines, and I will have conversations with each other. But our conversations are about how they work and what they do and what they're looking for. And I found it really interesting when I was looking at this topic of niche. And I have myself out there in a certain niche, but a niche can be this big, it can be smaller, it can be smaller, it can be smaller. And I found that when I was searching for certain things through AI search, it was pulling other people up, and it was pulling me up. So I made my, got to where I needed to be, but it wasn't pulling me up first. And I realized the reason it wasn't pulling me up first is because my niche included two related things, and that was too broad for the answer that AI wanted to give. And so they focused on someone who did one tiny little thing. And we could sit here and debate all day. Well, but is there enough business for that? That's not the question about being found on the internet and being found on AI search. So niche is a whole, I mean, we could do shows and shows about niche, but podcasting, the last thing I'll say that I do as well, and I think most podcasters do, you get a podcast episode, you get to learn, you get a blog post out of it. So you get to share that knowledge, both audio, you get to share it video, you get to share it written. And then you've got shorts and you've got, social media posts and you've got, lots and lots of content that all shares that message in multiple different ways to the same and or different audiences. So it really pays off in multiple ways.
Absolutely. And so I tell people, you want to own your space, you want to absolutely own it. Here's what you do. Start a daily podcast, daily news show. And in 2017 or 2018, I started a daily compliance news. It is 4 stories from the newspapers. So it's curated, but I just read the first paragraph. And I own that space now because people tell me it's only 5 minutes. One guy said, I listen to it while I'm shaving. Not that I needed to know that, but, people say it gets me in the right frame of mind when I'm walking into the office. And it's just 4 stories about compliance or corruption from the newspapers and I give the links if somebody wants to read it. Um, I, last year, I really got into AI, and we can have a whole conversation on that too. And I thought, well, why don't I try and see if I'll do AI news? Well, and I thought, well, let me just Google and see if there's AI and compliance. Well, it turns out there's 10 stories a day about AI and compliance. And I was stunned to find that out. So I started AI and compliance in September, and I think within 2 months, it was my biggest podcast. And I'm in the top 100 podcasts in, I think, 34 countries for tech news. And the only format I changed, I said AI today in 5. So it's 5 stories instead of 4. But it's the same process. I just Google AI and compliance and start taking today's top stories. And people love it. I wrote a book about 18 months ago on the use of AI and compliance. And I'm now writing sort of a governance book right now. And I decided to write it around the framework of Pope Leo's encyclica on the use of AI because I sat down and read it and I went, there's a lot of Catholic theology in there, but there's a lot of compliance in there. And he calls it something different. He calls it respect for human dignity and things like that. Well, I think that's called trust in the corporate world. So I found this great framework where I was not expecting it. And that's exactly what I like to do is storytelling and compliance. So one of the reasons I have so much fun is I will take up any topic. So Star Trek and compliance, Star Wars and compliance, Marvel Cinematic Universe and compliance, compliance at the movies, Shakespeare and compliance, Winnie the Pooh and compliance. I just did the Muppets and compliance. I've done famous authors in compliance. I've done Greek philosophers and Roman philosophers. You name the topic. And yesterday, every summer since 2018, I've done the full Star Trek original series and compliance. So it's called Trekking Through Compliance. And starts June 1. It goes 79 episodes all the way through. This year I added a blog. And as my wife said, this is really just an excuse to make me rewatch every episode, isn't it? And I'm like, honey, I have to do it. It's for work. So, and in 2025, my numbers were more than they were in 2018. So it's still resonating and it's just leadership lessons, ethics lessons, business lessons from my favorite TV show ever. And it's something that I was passionate about and I get to do it every summer.
Wow. But, I can only imagine the amount of information you're learning because it's keeping you right on the cutting edge of everything that's going on. Yeah, we're on similar paths. I'm much, newer at this. I've only launched, within the last year, whereas you've been doing this quite a while. You've done very well with it. So what do you say though to someone who's listening to this who's an attorney or some other service, professional service providers, primarily our audience here. And they're saying, well, yeah, Tom, but you're a retired attorney. I'm trying to keep a practice going and I got to deal with all my, court appearances and client schedule and returning phone calls and client trust accounts and all these things I got to worry about, not to mention continuing ed and so on and so forth. Where am I going to find the time? Where do I, how does this fit into my life?
Do you market? Oh, you don't? Well, you better start marketing. If you haven't learned that lesson, we have to have a different conversation.
Right.
Let's assume you're marketing. Well, how are you marketing? Well, I send a client newsletter out of key cases in our area of the law. I said, could you read that into a microphone once a month? That's a podcast. You're already marketing and you're already doing something, whatever it may be, and just take that and put it into the audio format. Now, let me say a word about video because we're recording this in video. As I mentioned, my video numbers are really minuscule on YouTube, but one time my daughter's 29 and my wife said, would you sit down and watch a two-person podcast on YouTube? She goes, well, that's what we do every Friday night. All our friends come over, we break open a bottle of wine and watch interviews on YouTube. Do it all the time. She's like, really? And that just shows you that different generations consume information in different ways. And I thought about it a minute, and actually, it's no different because let me give you the following story. When I was in college, Saturday Night Live started. And in the dorm, we didn't have TVs. And we would go to bars that had big screen TVs to watch Saturday Night Live. And so that's no different than watching a podcast interview. It's still video television or video presentation. Obviously, it was hard to hear in a bar and all that stuff, but we were going to the bar to watch Saturday Night Live. That's no different than my daughter and her friends getting together, cracking open some wine and cheese and watching a YouTube video. So what I realized is the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so the worry that you may have caused our listeners to have when you introduce the topic of AI and the practice of law and AI and podcasting, I don't think that's a problem at all because I see AI as a tool, a very powerful tool, very fun tool, very different tool. But we both started, after the internet came through. So that was a tool. And AI is a tool. And I have some friends in YC law firms, and we've had this conversation around the use of AI and what's that going to do for the training of young lawyers. Because I teach at law school, so I worry about how's a young lawyer going to get the experience. And, for me, it started off junior lawyer, write this brief, write this motion, go to the library, research it, write it, get it critiqued, red penciled, rewrite it, turn it into the partner, and the partner would sign it. Well, that kind of process may not be around anymore, but one lawyer told me he stumbled on the following. So a major litigation project came in, and he's a litigator, so he knows the subject matter of the law. He took the two most junior lawyers in the firm and told them, I want you to write code to get us the answer we want within 3 days. And they literally just sat and with ChatGPT or whatever tool LLM they were using and just refined the queries till they were able to get a structure where the partner could come in and put the subject matter expertise. And it was really a blending of the skills of a very young lawyer with the skills of a senior lawyer. And when you put that together, it gave him a fantastic output for his project assignment. He could bill on a project basis, didn't have to bill on an hourly basis. The client was happy because they got the result they wanted, but it showed me, let's use the skills that the younger lawyers have right now. And if those skills are asking queries of ChatGPT, so be it. I'm pretty good in queries because I work very hard at it. But if you're, like you said, practicing law full time, you may not be spending a couple of days learning how to do queries like I did. So I think there's something out there. I don't exactly know what it is. I just know something's out there, and that's probably gonna be my 3rd business pivot is, to see if I could take a one-person shop and get a lot of money out of it.
Well, that's sort of one of the goals of being in business, right? Is to be profitable.
Right.
So, yeah, but this concept, because I'm sure we all hear a lot of people talk about AI many different ways, and because it's so new, I think well, I know there's a lot of fear out there. Um, but when I listen to the fear that people express, it really comes from a lack of knowledge. AI in reality is very, very, very different from what I hear people think it is. They think it's just you get in and you chat with something and you may or may not get relevant information and, oh, some other way, I don't know how, but it's going to take my job away. And, and fear, fear, fear. In reality, every minute of every day, if you live on this planet, you're using AI. You don't know it, but you're using it and you're banking and you're shopping and your, internet search and your everything you do. And it can take a lot of rote tasks off of your plate, make things a lot easier. It can, well, again, we could go into an entirely different series of episodes about what it can do, but um, you have to stay up with where we are if you're going to be ahead, because if you don't, like you said, somebody else is already. So if you want to build a practice, and that's really, the bottom line here, you can't do it by sitting in your office worrying about whether I should or how should I or maybe I should. You have to figure out what are you going to be doing, podcasting being an excellent way, as Tom is saying here. Uh, Start somewhere. And that's the message that I always come out with is don't worry about the right place to start. Don't worry about setting up this whole massive network of things or whatever. Start somewhere and the market will tell you what it wants. If you do a podcast episode on something that nobody cares about, guess what? Nobody's going to listen and you'll see that. And then you do one and you're like, I didn't think anybody'd be interested in that. Like compliance. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, wow, here we are. So there you go.
Yep. Absolutely. People ask me what's the the key to starting a podcast. I'm saying, "Hey, listen very carefully. Get off your duff and start." That's it. The barriers to entry are so low. I tell people if you don't have any money, use your iPhone. You can do a podcast as simply as recording on an iPhone if you want to go as low budget as possible. So obviously you can, like I said, buy all the cool toys, but yeah, and I just don't see any downside to doing a podcast. And you're absolutely right. Having said that, I've done episodes where I learned a lot, nobody else listened, but I got something out of it. So it was equally valuable to me. And then, like you said, I've done episodes. I think my third even 12 years later, 13 years later, my third top episode, my first top episode is the following: branding lessons from Count Dracula.
Hmm.
Go figure. Turns out there's an entire vampire community out there who wants to learn branding lessons. But my third one is one of my favorites. As I talked to a guy who's obviously I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and we did 50 years of Star Trek, and that's still the number 3 episode, and obviously that resonated with a lot of people. So just
Right.
have fun.
Yeah. It's, I don't know why it's so hard for some people to allow themselves to try something. And this concept of, well, I got to get it perfect before I do it. How are you going to get it perfect? If you don't start, you're never going to know how you need to iterate to find the right, niche, to find the right path, to find the right approach. You may start out, one way and pivot to something else because it works better, and then pivot again because that works better. That's how businesses grow and thrive and change and profit. And, we can sit here and list all sorts of businesses that were big, huge names and they didn't pivot and they didn't grow and they died. And the lesson is never going to change. You have to, continue to pay attention to what's going on out there and be part of it, or you too, your business will wither and die, unfortunately.
I don't know if they teach us never to do that in law school or that's just burned into the DNA of people who go to law school, but that's certainly been my experience. I remember around, I don't know, 2010, 2011, 2013, 2010 or 2011. I was always a Internet Explorer guy, and they came out with a new operating system, Vista, I think it was, and it was just I couldn't figure it out. I thought it was horrible, and then I ended up dropping my computer and breaking it. And I thought, okay, let- the Lord has spoken. It's time to go to a Mac. So I went to an Apple store and told the sales guy what happened. I wanted to get a Mac, and he looked at me and said, "You know, you're the third lawyer who's come in to buy a Mac in like the last month. What's going on?" I said, "You want to know Mac's greatest advertising?" He goes, "What's that?" I said, "Vista." I said, "If you lose the lawyers, you've lost the most conservative people because I would have never left, the, Microsoft operating systems. But they changed it so much. I figure if I got to learn something new, I might as well learn a Mac. And now I'm a complete Mac guy. So, yeah, we lawyers are the most conservative, and we need to, to embrace this opportunity for change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have reached our time limit, unfortunately, on our show today. But Tom, tell people, how can they find you? How can they find your podcast? How can they find information on you?
So you can find my network, the Compliance Podcast Network, at www.compliancepodcastnetwork.net. You can email me through the network, or you can leave me a voicemail. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day. Thomas R. Fox. And the Compliance Podcast Network is also on LinkedIn. And if you want to email me, you can email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com.
Great, great. So I encourage listeners, even if you don't have an interest in compliance, just listen to Tom's show, listen to how he does it, take a look at, his layout, his titles, everything about what he does, and learn from that. There's always something to learn. So, all right. Well, Tom, thank you for your time today. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. We're trying to bring you as much up-to-date, meaningful information as possible because we want to see you grow your practice into a thriving practice so you have a nice business that continues to produce for you. And you can't do it by staying in the shadows. You got to get out there, and podcasting is a great way to do it. So join us on our next episode of Be Picked, where every week we bring you another wonderful guest who shares their stories and their insights and their advice. And we're all about helping you out. So please listen and tell your friends. We'll see you on the next episode of Be Picked. If you are enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. Thank you.